I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. This week ends with a bang. It's the anniversary of the first atomic bomb and my birthday. Which one of these fireworks will describe your vacation? When I come back, I'll have some hot trip tips.
Improved visibility and save $8 on a pair of Rain-X Latitude wiper blades. Plus earn double points during Overwatch Member Appreciation Month at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Ensure clear vision in any weather and save $8 on a pair of Rain-X Latitude wiper blades at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limit supply. See store for details.
Your vacation could be a blast or a bomb. And these little just-in-case details could make a big difference. Put air in your spare. Check your windshield wiper blades for wear. Replace your flashlight's batteries, whether it needs it now or not. And tuck a pair or two of spare sunglasses in the glove compartment. And get $10 worth of quarters, dimes, and nickels for toll booths. Now, go celebrate a birthday, vacation, or just a terrific summer weekend. Happy birthday to me. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And good morning. Welcome to this edition of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We're going to start out the program by saying a new affiliate, KPAY Chico, the North Valley's news talk station there in Chico, California. 93.9 FM, GM there of KPAY is Dino Corbin. And the program director, Scott Michaels, a special welcome. And for those of you who are tuned in to KPAY, this program airs from 10 till noon Eastern Time. And, of course, in California there, this show is delayed. So I share this with you so that next week you can get up a little earlier and call 888 Car Clinic so you can be on the program. Because by the time you hear this program, we've already aired. So we're delayed there in Chico, California. And for all of our other stations across the nation, we appreciate you airing Bobby Likis Car Clinic. And so I'm here to help your listeners and to help you folks with cars to know a little more about your automobile. And
so that you can enjoy it and you can save money, keep it in your garage instead of the repair garage. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part today by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You be sure to prepare for any upcoming road trips, folks, and before you begin your travels, stop by an O'Reilly Auto Parts store. Simple things, preventive maintenance before you go will ensure a safe journey on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. Your calls at 888 Car Clinic when I come back. In the service bay this week, an 08 F-150 with a check engine light flashing, which typically indicates a misfire. The engine was showing the symptoms as well because it was shaking and the truck was hardly running. A complete diagnostics proved the problem to be one failed ignition coil and a marginal coil. At 12 years old and 123,000 miles, we felt it made sense to replace all the coils and spark plugs. Our solution? Replacement coil packs and spark plugs from Motorcraft. These trucks perform best when they're running on all 8 cylinders, and even more so when Motorcraft parts are installed. We carefully installed the coil packs and spark plugs, cleared the misfire codes, and road tested the vehicle. The customer's F-150 ran great. The performance and economy restored. Motorcraft parts are specifically designed for all your Ford and Lincoln repairs. Motorcraft, right part, priced right. You can learn more about Motorcraft coil packs and spark plugs and other high-quality vehicle-specific parts at motorcraft.com. This car repair spotlight brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Folks, this week an 04 Chevy Avalanche with 196,000 miles came in the shop with a noisy front wheel and ABS light on. Our service team determined the truck had a bad front wheel bearing. Not sure about the ABS issue. We called our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional who recommended a Precision brand hub assembly. The Precision hub came with new bearings, new seals, new wheel studs, and an ABS sensor built in. Perhaps the new hub with its built-in ABS sensor might also fix the ABS. We called the owner to explain the process and give a cost estimate. Replace the hub, clear all codes, and retest the vehicle. What a relief after repair as both the noise and ABS issue were repaired. Given the cost of repair, whenever we can fix 2 problems with 1 part, makes our customers really happy and our team heroes. That's why we make O'Reilly Auto Parts our first call. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with today's program. Hannah will take your calls should you wish to call in. And I would ask that you call earlier versus later as toward the end of the program each hour. And they're 2 hours. This is the first of 2 hours broadcast every Saturday, 10 till noon Eastern time. From the center of the automotive universe, that's what we call it. It's really a cool place. I'm sitting here in front of the mic with a camera in front of me, and for Watch Bobby Live, I'll wave at the camera. We host this program and have for 28 years. And then to my left is a small computer screen that matches the computer screen that Hannah uses. There's the only thing on that is the blocks for the lines 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 12 telephone lines. And so when I am talking with someone and I've got 5 or 6 folks on hold, each one of those lines has a block. They're in a block that's about 1.5 inches high and covers half the screen. So you divide the screen into 12 sections, and I'm looking at the section. The section that is yellow means that's the one that Fabio, our producer, has plugged on the air. So when you call, and if you're not on the fourth line, and I've got 6 calls there, I can just glance over and see that I'm talking to Gladys or to John or Jerry, and that way I can, we can be on a first name basis. It's always surprising to me, and how much I really appreciate, and we all do, the connections that I have and have created over the years with those of you who are tuned in, and you have a car question, and we end up being friends because, number one, while we do have commercials, and that's the way we pay for our program, we're here really I'm here to help you to understand the car that you drive and to share information that I think is essential for you to understand not only the car you drive, but how to, mostly, I guess, would be how to interact with the local service provider. And I don't know about you, but when I go to a restaurant, I do know about you because we're all the same way, really. When we walk into a place of business, whether it's an automotive repair shop, and by the way, this studio is located within our 15,000 square foot automotive service facility along the Gulf Coast of Florida. And so inside that 15,000 square foot facility where I have 16 bays and technicians and 50 or 60 hours a week, we service and repair and pre-repair, which is a prevention of repair, our local customers, our area. I started local. Well, what does local mean? We had one gentleman that drove his Avalanche down from North Carolina, I think it was, and there was a 600-mile trip to get an inspection performed on his truck. Really. And he and his wife came down, and they ended up, they just didn't have a shop or a connection there in North Carolina at their local shop. So brought it down to us, and we did an inspection on it. And my question to him was, look, we're going to perform this inspection, and we're going to find things that this vehicle needs. And folks, it was a 140,000-mile Avalanche, and it was red. And that's what he wanted, an Avalanche red. Well, they don't make them anymore, so he found one. And really, it turned out to be a good vehicle. We spent, I forget what we spent on it. We spent $1,000, let's say. And it did need more work, but really that's not bad when you think of 140,000 miles. And just put that in the back of your mind if you've got a vehicle that has 100,000 plus, or is say 10 years old. And you could spend a couple $1,000s to bring that vehicle back up to roadworthiness. And roadworthiness means not that it'll start and run and go down the road. It means that if you should get an emergency call, these are the standards by which I've always practiced my business. When and if you should get an emergency call at 2 a.m. in the morning, heaven forbid, and you have a relative or some issue that you have to get on the road, your vehicle should be in the condition that you could add gas to it, and that's all you would need. So if your vehicle, if you can't close your eyes right now and think about, well, okay, what do I need? I just found out that, my daughter who lives in another city is going to have a baby, and they want me to be there, or something like that. Who knows what it is? You should be able just to take your automobile and fill it with gas and hit the road. So those are now how many of you have a car that is that ready to hit the road? See, I have several cars, and every one of my cars, except for the classic Porsche that I'm still working on, it's as Jonathan said earlier today, it's a work in progress. It just gets better and better. It's an 80 model, and I really, really enjoy this vehicle. I don't drive it. You say, well, how do you enjoy it? I enjoy just to look at it, and I show it off. And it's a classic. And the reason I don't drive it is because it has special paint, and it's in immaculate condition. And anytime you drive a car, somebody's going to hit you with a rock that you don't know about and chip the paint and so on and so forth. And so I prefer. But my other 2 or 3 cars are absolutely ready, road ready as we speak. And except for my Jag needs gas. I know that because the low fuel light is on this morning. It just came on. I have 33 miles to empty. So let's think about that. If I had 0 miles to empty, my vehicle would hold 20 gallons of gas. It holds 21.4. So after it reaches 0 miles to empty, it still has 1.4 gallons, but it should hold 20 gallons because the tank holds 20. So I've got 33 miles to go. I noticed as I pulled into the studio this morning. So if I'm getting 16 miles per gallon, that means that I have 2 gallons of fuel left in the car, roughly. So if it's 33, if I'm getting 16 miles a gallon in town, which I do from time to time, 15 to 17. So if I'm getting 16 miles per gallon and have 33 miles, then theoretically it would hold 18 gallons, because 0 miles would be, so actually 1 mile to empty would be at 16 miles per gallon, 32 miles. So what I will do is I will drive that vehicle probably, unless I go across the Bay Bridge, but if I'm just going from here to the house and there's no, anxiety or danger about getting caught into traffic or on the bridge with low fuel, I will run it down to 0 miles to empty. And a lot of folks say, well, if you run a car low on gas, doesn't that damage the fuel pump? So that's a good question. So if you have that question, give me a call and we'll talk about just how low you can go on gasoline in the tank before you cause damage to the electric fuel pump that is in the tank. 888-227-2546 is the number for you to call. So the bottom line, I run it down to 0. That means that it should have 1.4. It holds 21.4. Therefore, if I go click, 2 clicks on the tank and fill it, it should hold 20 gallons. So what I do is I fill it, but I don't look at the gallons. And I go ahead and, print the receipt, and I reset the odometer, and then when I get to the office, or if I can't wait sometimes, I will look at it after I've guessed how much fuel it holds. And I normally will guess, now if I had 33 and I'm getting 16 is 32, so if I go down to 1 mile per gallon, 1 mile left, to go to empty, it should hold 20 gallons minus whatever gallon 1 mile would bring. So that's a net. So then it's a guess. So I would say it would hold 19.9. And sure enough, as a rule, it holds 19.7, 20, 19.75, 19.69. So I'm usually about 0.2 of a gallon off over 20 gallons. And you say, well, that's a strange thing for you to do. Why do you do that? Number one, I enjoy it. It's a fun thing for me. But also it keeps me absolutely cognizant of any changes in the MPG of my car, which means there's an issue. And of course, the first time we have winter, which we're in Florida, so we don't see much of a winter, but the first time we have winter, then those variables really are changed, and really a lot of variables, because if we had all of a sudden a 30-degree temperature drop, which we do, overnight, then next thing you know, your gas mileage has gone from 16 to 14 or 13.5. And you say, well, why is that? Because the colder the ambient temperature, the longer it takes for the engine to warm. And the longer it takes for an engine to warm, the gas mileage is not optimized until it reaches normal operating temperature, which is 220 degrees. That's the normal operating temperature of the car. In fact, the fan that cools the engine in front of the radiator or behind the radiator doesn't come on until the engine sees, on an approximate scale overall, 225 degrees. So when the engine reaches 225, the fans come on, the thermostat, and the fans don't cool the engine, they cool the radiator, which cools the coolant, which is coming from the engine. And that's how all that works. But you got to have good coolant. You better have both your fans and everything better be working. So when I come back, I'm going to tell you which of the best cities in the U.S. are for public transportation and which are the worst, and you're called at 888 Car Clinic. Don't go away. Today's vehicles have more than 150 electrical accessories for safety, comfort, and sustainability, and much more than 20 years ago. Clarius is the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries that are precision engineered to meet today's electrical demands. Things like backup cameras, GPS, navigation, entertainment systems, and start-stop technology. AGM batteries have up to 2 times the life of traditional batteries and are non-spillable. When you need a battery, make sure you ask for an AGM battery to meet today's evolving electrical needs. Visit autobatteries.com for more information. Berryman's B12 Chem Tool features HEST, or High Energy Solvent Technology. Using a combination of stronger solvents, HEST technology cleans injectors, carburetors, and combustion chambers. But don't take our word for it. According to Stephen B., Berryman products have been part of my automotive care and maintenance program since 1996. From additives and cleaners to sealants, Berryman products are a must for any gearhead and automotive enthusiast. Learn more about Berryman B12 Chem Tool and other great products at berrymanproducts.com. This car repair spotlight is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. This week, a 2017 RX 350 Lexus with 28,000 miles came in the shop for a 30,000-mile inspection. No problems, except the Lexus AC system had a musty AC odor. Our ASE-certified technician performed all factory-approved services, including a new key fob battery. Then we ordered a MicroGuard cabin air filter from our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional to cure the musty odor. We installed a Wix oil filter in this Lexus to make sure our 30,000-mile service included parts that matched or exceeded the factory specs. With 48 years in automotive service and repair, we choose the best brand parts that are of the highest quality. But of all the great services we performed on this Lexus, the main one our customer will notice is whether or not the musty odor is gone. That's why we make O'Reilly Auto Parts our first call. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hun, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
Higher, 98.
Higher.
Higher, 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100?
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic this morning brought to you by Optima Batteries. My choice. We just put a complete new line of Optima batteries in our shop, and they're 15 times more vibration resistant than traditional flooded batteries, folks. The Optima batteries, we call them the ultimate power source. You can learn more at optimabatteries.com. And just as an FYI, Optima Batteries is a brand that is owned by Clarius. And just also for your information, of all of the batteries in all of the vehicles in all of the world, 1 in 3 is a Clarius battery. So it's a rather large organization that makes a lot of batteries. So when you really think about it, when you go to different organizations and different businesses and buy a battery, if 1 in 3 batteries is the Clarius, that means that all of the brands that you see, how many of those are really made by Clarius? So that's an interesting, I wish I knew that stat. I don't have an idea. I know that the Optima, of course, is one of those. But anyway, they're great batteries, and just remember, no pun intended, everything starts at the battery. And with today's automobiles, that's even more important because of all the start-stop, the navigation systems, the multiple air conditioner blower speeds, electric motors that work the air conditioner vents, the HVAC system, all that's electronically controlled now. And you know, if you were thinking, well, why would so many things be so computer controlled? Because with a computer, you can not only open a door and close a door, open a throttle wirelessly, but drive by wire, which is what you do. You steer by wire. Literally steer by wire. And you say, well, how does that work? You could take a Lexus, and I've actually done this, And even for as much as I profess to know about automobiles, it kind of blew my mind when Johnny Bars, our master ASE certified technician, is in his shop. He said, "Watch this," and he puts this Lexus in. Fabio, I'm not sure your Prius would do this. It may be too early, but this Lexus, we put this Lexus in shop mode, which disconnects the steering wheel from the car. And the steering wheel's still on the car, still hooked up. And, you haven't physically touched anything. And we put it in shop mode, and you can take the steering wheel and just spin it, and it's just free wheels. And so I got to thinking, if you can electronically disconnect the steering wheel from the steering mechanism of the car, then what if that happened going down the road? You'd be in a lot of trouble. So I deduced from that the clutch mechanism that connects the steering wheel to the car does not require voltage to engage. Just the opposite. It requires voltage and a signal from the computer to disengage. So the moral of that story is, if you should lose the battery, which could happen in any automobile, batteries go bad all the time. If you lost the battery, then you would have manual steering, but you would still have manual steering. Otherwise, there would be no fail-safe, and the fail-safe is really an important factor. 888-227-2546. Hannah will take your call, put you in the queue. I'll put you on the air. So this is from WalletHub.com. So Americans are taking nearly 10 billion trips on public transportation every year. The personal finance website Wallet Hub announced recently. In fact, Wallet Hub produced a report on 2019's cities with the best and worst public transportation. We should do that with the best and worst shops. We should do that with the best and worst doctors, and the best and worst lawyers, and the best and worst city management, and the best and worst traffic. But alas, we can only pinpoint a few of those. So Wallet Hub, to determine the most driver-friendly places in the U.S., they compared 100 cities across 17 key metrics, and the data set ranges from share of commuters who use public transit and average age of the fleet to number of injuries and peak hours spent in congestion. And so when I think about that, the only type of congestion that we see in our small area, which is growing all the time, it's beautiful Pensacola, is occasionally when you cross Bay Bridge, there's an accident on a bridge, then you're relegated just to hang out. And that has happened to me one time. Not the accident, but I've been caught there. But to determine the most driver-friendly places, Wallet Hub produced this survey, or report. So here's the best cities for public transportation. Number 1, and I'll just read these off quickly, 1 through 10, Seattle, Washington, Boston, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Madison, Wisconsin, New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey, New York, Reno, Nevada, Honolulu, Portland, Oregon. So those are the 10 best cities for public transportation. So what's the opposite? What's the worst? Well, number 91 of 100 cities is St. Louis, Missouri. That's really strange. I'll have to ask my daughter about that. She lives in O'Fallon, which is about 40 minutes north of St. Louis. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So Baton Rouge, how about that? That's a shocker. Arlington, Texas. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Look at this, number 90, 94, and number 95 of 100 cities. Tulsa and Oklahoma City are 94 and 5. Charlotte, North Carolina. And 98 is Tampa, Florida. Number 99 is St. Petersburg, Florida. Oh, hey, folks down in St. Petersburg, you need to get your act together. And number 100 is Indianapolis, Indiana. And here's really another little stat, and then I see Chuck is on the line. We'll go to Chuck in just a minute. Lincoln, Nebraska has the shortest average commute time by public transportation, 30.2 minutes, which is 2.4 times shorter than Henderson, Nevada. I've been to Henderson, Nevada, by the way. The city with the longest, at 71.7 minutes. So you've got an hour and almost an hour and 12 minutes for public transportation. Wichita, Kansas has the fewest annual hours spent in congestion per commuter, 22 hours. That's the fewest annual hours. That's, total hours per annum, 22 hours, which is 7.5 times fewer than Boston, the city with the most, at 164 hours. And Reno, Nevada, last but not least, has the lowest average age of the public transit fleet at 3.72 years. So guess who has the oldest fleet of public transportation? Fabio, would you care to guess? They're within 230 miles of us.
I don't know.
Don't know. New Orleans. Their fleet is 17.05 years age. That's the 4.6 times lower than Reno, Nevada, than New Orleans, the city with the highest. And this is the average age of the fleet, 17.05. And I guess when you think about that, it's the old trolley cars that go around the quarter and around New Orleans. But it doesn't matter. I mean, now I have ridden many times those trains or trams or whatever you would call them, and they are mechanical marvels. You can hear all the air and the brakes and the scraping of the shoes on the steel wheels and the tracks, and that's just part of New Orleans. But according to Wallet Hub, and for more information, you can Google wallethub.com, and there's a long, or just Google the report of the cities with the best and the worst if you'd like to see where your city falls. We'll take a call from Chuck, and then I'll take your calls at 888-227-2546. Good morning, Chuck. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, sir.
I have a question about my 2017 GMC Sierra 1500. I recently purchased this car back in March, and I come to find out I had it in the shop about 30 days or within 30 days after I bought the truck, and it's under warranty, so I took it into the dealership, and I had some transmission issues. It was jerking in the low transmissions, and it would jerk when it downshifted and jerk when it upshifted. And they flushed the transmission out a couple times, they told me, put in some new fluid, and they said that usually corrects the problem. Well, I thought, why wasn't it done by the previous owner? But that's neither here nor there. I drove it since then, and recently, over the last month, it started doing again, and I have an appointment to take it back into the dealership next week. And I just wanted to find out what you may have heard regarding these 8-speed transmissions that are in these trucks. I haven't any other complaints except for this low speed jerk or flutter or whatever you want to call it. And I understand that there's a potential for a class action suit, which causes me to worry. And I just wondered if you had heard anything or what course of action you might think I should follow.
Chuck, that's a good question. Number one, I have not heard anything on the GMC. However, Ford has already in place, as I understand, a class action suit with regard to their dual clutch transmission. I don't believe, in fact, yours does not have a dual clutch transmission. When you have 8 speeds, but let me just say this. So here's a short answer. I sincerely believe that what GM will do is reflash the transmission controller, which means that what you're feeling there is you're feeling a transmission that has so many gears that depending on the the load of the truck and the throttle position, that's where your foot is, and your driving habits, that transmission can easily be confused. We're coming up on a break, so if the break interferes, you just stay right there, Chuck, and because this is information that more people than just you are having an issue with. I literally love 8-speed transmissions. I have one in my car. It's a German transmission. It has the best mapping of any transmission I've ever driven. And mapping means when that transmission shifts from first to second to third to fourth and all the way up to 8th gear, and at what speed and at what throttle opening. And when I come back, we'll pick up where we left off. And folks, now's the time for you to get in at 888-227-2546. A 2015 Ford Escape recently came into the shop, 120,000 miles and going strong, but it was starting to hesitate, and the customer also complained of declining fuel economy. This 2-liter turbocharged engine is GDI, or gas direct injection, and special maintenance is needed in certain areas, particularly the fuel system. We suspected carbon buildup, and sure enough, using a borescope through the spark plug hole, there was definite evidence of carbon buildup. GDI engines are different in the way they inject fuel, and it can create some issues with repair and maintenance. That's why it's important to use products rated for GDI, like Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit. Each step of the process is designed with GDI engines in mind. We use the kit, and after 2 weeks on the road, the car is performing noticeably better, and MPG has improved a bit. Learn more about Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit and other great products at berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but morning's knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
Technology moves at the speed of innovation, and today, that's lightning fast. So when you get your hands on the latest tech, don't forget to do the right thing with your old devices. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old tech device as easy as purchasing new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the responsible recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find lots of tips to simplify your recycling, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Television sets, video game consoles, smartphones, tablets, they're all recyclable. Don't let them clog up your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org. You're sharp enough to get the latest tech tools into your home. Now be responsible enough to get your old devices to the recycler. That's greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We're talking with Chuck with a 17 GMC Sierra. So Chuck, here's the bottom line. You have 8 speeds, and usually about 50, let's say 52 miles an hour, 8-speed will come in. Now, just like riding a bicycle, you would go from first, but you wouldn't go from first to 10th speed, because your legs would say, "Hey, I can't turn the pedal because you're going too slow for the overdrive of the transmission." And as a rule, the first 4 to 5 gears in a transmission are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 6, 7, and 8 are overdrives. The new Corvette, the mid-engine Corvette, with its 7-speed or 8-speed, I think it's a 7-speed, could be an 8. But regardless, the first 4 gears, the fourth gear is 1-to-1. So fourth gear is what we call high gear, your final drive. And the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th are all overdrive. And so when you have, and here's why. When you have a lot of gears in the transmission, mainly you have overdrive gears, you can use a lower gear ratio in the ring and pinion in the back of the vehicle, or the front drive, or all-wheel drive. You can use lower gear ratio sets, which gives you a launching ability, meaning that from a dead standstill, and I don't know how many folks, and Chuck, I don't know if you've ever driven a tractor with granny low. I mean, you pull a stump down, right? Well, that's because low gear is probably 30-to-1, which means that you can put it in low gear and you could turn the engine 2,500 RPM in low gear, and you'd be going 2 miles an hour. And so they make those low gears, and even in your truck, that first, second, third, those are all very low ratio gears, which gives the engine torque, which means that the truck from a standstill can be launched with less energy and less power draw from the engine. Now, that's good because it means that it accelerates rapidly and can tow a heavy load. But when you get out on the road and you're cruising, you've got to reduce. Here, the optimum gas mileage comes when you move the torque and the RPM up and to the left. Whereas normally you look at like production, let's move it up and to the right, which means you're producing more products in a quicker time, and you produce more profits up and to the right. Well, with torque, you want to increase the torque as fast as you can on the engine when you design the engine, because torque, not horsepower, torque is miles per gallon. Horsepower is how fast the vehicle will run wide open. So when you're doing wide open, you're not that's not about gas mileage. That's about seeing how fast your car can run. Miles per gallon is if you can create the torque. And let's say in your GMC, let's say its maximum torque is 2,200, probably 2,800, but let's say it's 2,200. If you could redesign that engine so that and cams and compression and all those things that have to do with horsepower and torque, so that it gets its best torque at 1,800 RPM, and you got an 8-speed, you could run 75 miles per hour at, 1,800 RPM. And the engine would love it because it's in its sweet spot. You're driving the car at highway speeds in the RPM range that the engine loves, just like if you were, you and I were jogging, and I'm 5'7.5", and if you were 6'5", for you to jog, I'd have to be running. You see where I'm going there?
I get it.
Okay, all right, good. So when you've got all of these gears, you can be all things to all drivers, because if you want to torque, bam, you got it. If you want to back off and ease off the throttle and let it upshift, it will upshift, and you will get better gas mileage, better and better. And a short example of that is when I had my Viper, and I wanted to, just to prove a point, get not 10 miles per gallon in town, but 13, which is a 30% increase. I would go first, third, fifth. I would skip shift because it had so much power. It didn't balk at me. It didn't mind doing that, and I did it just to prove I could get better gas mileage. Having said that, when you're just drive normally, and there's no such thing as driving normally, because you're having to follow the driver in front of you or the traffic, what have you. Just about the time you go from first to second, third, now you're into fourth or fifth, and you're going, 45, 50, 55 miles an hour, somewhere in that range, and then there's a traffic light ahead, you back off the throttle. Well, that transmission says, he's backing off the throttle, don't upshift, wait, he's slowing down. So because the transmission is controlled by a computer that has sensor inputs, and those sensor inputs come from the driver's feed, the driver demand it's called, engine RPM, engine load, and road speed. So you've got the drive shaft speed, you've got the road speed, that's two different things. You've got the driver's input on the throttle, That's three different things. You've got the engine temperature, engine load, which means whether or not you're hauling something or just you alone in the truck. So when you have all of these variables, the computer is hard-pressed to determine just when to shift into what gear and when. And so
I get it.
So I share this with you because everyone out there should know that I could drive your vehicle and I could make your transmission do really funky things because I would know when it was about to shift, and just before it started to shift, I'd back off the throttle, and then it would think that I'm coasting, so it would go ahead and upshift. And then about the time it upshift, I step on the throttle a little too hard, and it would say, "Oh, wait, and so it would downshift, up, down, up, down. You know, it's like you ever, Chuck, had a cruise control where the cruise control was delayed, and you come up the hill and it gets slower, and then and all of a sudden the cruise control depresses the throttle, and next thing you know, it downshifts into another gear. I mean, that's typical.
Yes, I have.
That's exactly what's going on times 5 or 6 in your transmission. But the dealer should explain this to you, not as an excuse, but so that you'll better understand the vehicle. Because let me tell you something, changing the fluid in the transmission, other than going to a super slick synthetic, which is good and bad, and depends. It's not going to change the mapping of the transmission. The mapping of the transmission means all of what I've just said: the throttle speed, engine load, and all those sorts of things. So those are variables that have to be dealt with. And in the case of so with you, here's what I imagine is going to happen. Ultimately, there's going to be an update on the software for the transmission control module in your truck, and that software won't modify the transmission. Because there's no modification there. It's just a electronic control of the solenoids that engage or put fluid into a clutch to make it apply. So it's like having a row of switches. You have 8 lights, and you got a row of switches, and you can turn on one light, or the 8th light, or the 7th light, or you can turn them on and off at random electronically, and like you'd have in a den where you have maybe a back pool area, and you got a deck, and you've got 4 different switches, and one's for the pool light, one's for, you see where I'm going there? So yes. The computer can control independently each one of those solenoids that immediately sends fluid to a clutch pack that locks up a gear. So you can go 1, 4, 8, 1, 3, 7, but you wouldn't do that. But the bottom line is that's the neat thing about having an electronically controlled transmission, if the driver understands the idiosyncrasies of that transmission. And on your part, I do not believe that you have an issue. I believe that what you have is a vehicle that, because it's a truck, may have a lower gear differential, so it's susceptible to more multiple changes, because the quicker, and wait, one more final point, not to belabor it, but one more final point. When the factory lays out the mapping of the transmission, they don't do it for driver's convenience. They don't do it for towing. They don't do it. The only thing that is top of mind is MPG. So the faster they can get your vehicle into a taller gear, a higher gear, the better your MPG. So, and to that end, go ahead.
I have to be honest with you. I love the vehicle, and I've traveled. This summer we took a trip up to Wisconsin, and I pull a 26-foot travel trailer. And for the first time in my life, and I've had trucks before, I averaged out. Now I do it gas in, miles out.
Right.
You know, the old-fashioned way of figuring mileage.
I got you.
And I went on my trip. Now, granted, I was mostly in non-mountainous areas, flat zones.
Got you.
I was getting like 12 miles to the gallon, and I have never in my entire life, in all the previous trucks I've owned, got better than 8.5 or 9.
Yeah, exactly.
Pulling a trailer.
Exactly.
So I know exactly what you're saying, and I love the fact that this transmission has been able to increase. That's like a 30% increase in mileage just by pulling my trailer. And I like everything else about the truck, but you read these things online, and sometimes you say, boy, did I do the right thing, or did they tell me everything that they should have told me when I bought this truck?
Well, they don't know.
And,
they don't know
that's
everything.
That's why I needed to call you.
I'm glad you did, really, because they don't know. The challenge is today, because of the internet and because of because we can get more information more easily. As a rule, a buyer of a car or a truck like you, like especially me, knows more than a salesman selling the vehicle. And so, as just for your information, folks, if you're in the selling business and you're selling new cars, learn your product. And also, don't just learn how to work the switches, but learn its idiosyncrasies. Drive those cars so that when you introduce the Chucks of the world to a new car, you can say, Chuck, here, this is really great. Look, you turn the air conditioner on, radio, and the rear screen, the front screen, yada, yada, yada. Oh, but by the way, the transmission's kind of funky if you do this and this. And then, and then one more thing before I let you go. Then we're going to go to New York and talk with Jack. So, Jack, I'm coming to you. As you let off the accelerator and come to a stop, let's say you're going 55 miles per hour, you let off the accelerator, and you're coasting down to a stop, or you're off-ramping of the interstate. Well, during that time, that transmission will downshift, because by the time you get to a rolling stop, the transmission has to have gotten into first gear. But if you're going 30 miles an hour and it jumps into first gear, all of a sudden it jerks your head off. I do that quite often because I like to use my paddle shifters, and I do it to over-rev my engine and so that I don't use the brakes, and it's a fun thing to do anyway for me. So I just wanted you to know that there's a lot of shifting going on in there. And one last thing, Ford Motor Company, with their dual clutch transmission, which is not an automatic like yours, but is a standard transmission with two clutches, those clutches are dry clutches, and as a result, they can be so confused depending on driver. If you're pulling off and then you let off the accelerator, that occasionally they'll bang into one gear and still be partially in another, and you can't have two gears engaged at one time. If you do, you lock up. So they have a real jerky, and for that reason, they had dry clutches. Now, the new Corvette and other vehicles use wet clutches because they're softer, they last longer, and they're more gentle with shifting transmission. Anyway, enough about that, but I really do like the 8 speeds. I have an 8-speed German transmission in my Jag that's made in the UK, and I sure am glad that Tata, when he bought Jag from Ford, bought a German transmission and put it in my car, because it is the delight. Hey, Chuck, nice talking with you, and stay tuned. Let me know what they change when you go back to the dealer, okay?
I will, and I appreciate you taking the time that you've taken to explain it. It's made me feel much more comfortable about what I'm dealing with.
Okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for your confidence in me. And now we're going to take a quick trip to New York. Jack, thank you for holding. There's a lot going on there, with a lot of gears, so it's a lot of conversation. But let's talk about your 18 Wrangler.
Yeah. Having a problem with the front end. At about 65, 70 on the highway, hit a little bump, and the front end feels like it's going to shake right out from under it. So I don't know. I've had it back, and they said it's a steering stabilizer. They've changed that, but my wife just called. I'm out in South Dakota. She called and told me when I get home to get rid of it.
Get rid of the Wrangler, or you?
Yeah, get rid of the Wrangler. We've had 6. This is our 6th one.
Well, that's a common issue, and if they've already replaced the stabilizer, which is a horizontally fixed shock, you might want to go to an aftermarket shock versus here's what I would do if I were you. I would. And I know they've already done this, so just take it someplace else. Take it to a specialist and have them to align the front end and set the toe in on the heavy side. In other words, if it's okay, so whatever the specs are, put it more toe in, but not to exceed the specs. Okay, but on the heavy side. In other words, you got the door open 1 inch or closed all the way, and you want yours the full 1 inch open, or you want you understand what I'm saying there. And then balance the tires, and then put an aftermarket steering stabilizer that's larger than the factory, and it'll fix that problem. You do not have to get rid of that car, but I got to go because I'm out of time. I'm Bobby Likis. You'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Folks, you never want to get surprised by a dead battery. A vehicle's original battery generally lasts about 3 to 5 years, but many fail long before then. Next time you're in for an oil service, have the technician test your battery. Better now than too late. Today's vehicles have start-stop systems, navigation, radio amplifiers, electric fuel pumps, 25 or more onboard computer modules, and serious electronic controls that depend on a strong, fully charged battery. Make sure the car you're driving has a healthy battery. Make yourself a note. Go to autobatteries.com and see for yourself how a battery can keep you safely driving down the road or put you on the side, just like that. At autobatteries.com, you'll see battery technology, battery testing, how to choose the battery, how to jumpstart your battery, and more about AGM batteries, my choice. I'm not here to make you a battery expert, rather to help you better understand why a reliable battery is essential for your road trips. Go to autobatteries.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
If you're familiar with the Kulseford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulseford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with. And by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemulls. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And thank you for tuning in. Well, I just looked into the studio there. What a surprise. Jonathan is working the board, and Fabio is, I think he's chilling out. So is Fabio still in the room, Jonathan? There he is, okay. That's kind of neat. So, in other words, what does that mean? Well, it means that Jonathan's driving the bus, so when you call in, it's Jonathan who will put you on the air and will turn your volume up or down, or me up or down. He will control all of us, and Miss Hannah will take your calls at 888 Car Clinic. Let's get started early. Come on, folks. 888-227-2546. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by K-Seal, a one-step pour-in solution designed to stop coolant leaks. That's all you have to remember. And also help prevent future leaks. You can find a K-Seal at parts stores nationwide, like Napa Auto Parts, for example. Don't just seal your old car that's leaking with a radiator or a water pump or a heater core, K-Seal it. For more information, check them out at kseal.com. And for more information, call 888 Car Clinic. You see a segue right in there, Hannah. So I'm going to get you busy this week or this hour. 888-227-2546. And when I come back, I'm going to tell you a little bit about electric vehicle revolution and the government. Uh-oh. Time for another edition of Cooling System Q&A, brought to you by Motorrad, your first choice for vehicle thermostats and caps. Why is the thermostat so important? Cooling system regulates engine temperature and helps prevent overheating. While it's comprised of several components, the thermostat plays a critical role with efficient cooling system operation. It must regulate coolant flow properly to maintain a specific engine operating temperature, in addition to providing quick warm-up. Motorrad's new stainless steel thermal element UltraStat is unmatched for corrosion resistance. Its revolutionary Reax wax mixture provides quicker reaction time. The UltraStat also features bilinear valve technology, which prevents thermal shock to cooling system components, gradually increasing coolant flow versus instant maximum flow found in traditional thermostats. The UltraStat precisely controls engine temperature to ensure the lowest emission standards, maximum fuel efficiency, and terrific interior cabin comfort. The Motorrad UltraStat line is the perfect thermostat upgrade option with coverage for over 160 million vehicles on the road today. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service. We recently had an 09 Honda Pilot come into the shop with 169,000 miles on the odometer. The vehicle owner said the cabin was starting to smell like coolant, and he was concerned. Upon closer inspection, we found a heater core leak. Choices were to keep the vehicle and make a repair, which at best is half a day's labor plus parts, or sell the vehicle and buy a different used car that could have its own set of problems. We presented a third option, K-Seal. You've heard me talk about K-Seal before. Well, I don't just talk about it, we actually use the product in our service shop. It's a pour-in solution designed to stop leaks and help prevent future leaks. Other sealers use sodium silicate, which has a tendency to clog the system. K-Seal features ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. Our customer went with K-Seal, and 1 month later, no more leak. Learn more about K-Seal at kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Remember, every week from 10 till noon Eastern Time, you can tune in to your favorite local AM and or FM radio stations and pick up this program. You can call 888 Car Clinic and I'll answer your car questions to the best of my ability and to my experience and my education with regard to automotive industry and fuels and oils and tires and electric vehicles. Let's talk about electric vehicles. Just we'll touch on EVs. So this is very interesting. So what is it? Well, the importance of carbon emission reduction, that's in the spotlight. So and I asked, Sprague was his name. Stephen, no, it wasn't Stephen. Anyway, he's the marketing director for Kia. And Michael, I think, he sent me a K900 to drive in 2015. I was very impressed with the K900. At that time, I had a doubt that a person that goes onto a Kia used car or new car lot rather would go there to spend 60 grand for a Kia, even if it's a K900. And that turned out to be the case. I mean, those cars didn't sell a lot. They didn't sell a lot of those cars, but they still are, they being Kia and Hyundai, are breaking into that segment of that market. So, it's like I've said many, many times at Bobby Likis Car Clinic, if you don't see the car that you want, just wait 60 days or 6 months and that car will come out. But long story short, I drove this K900. The only thing that I can say negatively about that vehicle is the fit and finish of the body. It would not pass specs to me. And specifically the gas cap looked like the gas cap was made over in room X, and the body was made over in room A, but the managers and the metalsmiths never talked to each other. Okay, I got to have a square door here, and it's got to have a little bit of a curve in it, whatever degree, yada yada yada. But anyway, the gas cap flap, the door, it did not match the flow of the car, and it's on the side, so it stuck out like a sore thumb. Also, the trailing edge of the hood, when you're driving the car, the hood, of course, Hyundai, owns, they're in the steel business, so they make their own steel for their own cars. So obviously, which I think that business may be larger than their automotive business, but the bottom line, the trailing edge of the hood, just imagine you're in the car now and you're looking at the trailing edge of the hood. Obviously, when they make the metal and they shear the metal, they have to roll the edge, because otherwise you'd have a razor blade edge. Well, this Kia had rolled, except the 2 inches on the left side, or 2 or 3 inches, as I remember, weren't rolled. And the 2 inches on the right side, where the passengers sat, weren't rolled. And you could see the hood, and you could see the sharp edge. Now, that was the trailing edge, so it's not where you're going to put your hand, but the bottom line is it looked unfinished. Then in several places in the very back of the vehicle, where the license plate mounted underneath or below the deck lid, trunk lid, then that had a few waves in it. So on a body standpoint, I gave it like a 6 rating. Electronically, I gave it a 10 rating. And I wish my car had Kia electronics in it. I love the screens. I love it was user friendly. And if you remember that term, that all manufacturers of computers kept saying, this is user friendly. None of them were. GM sent me an ELR rather, and it was took me 7 hours. I still hadn't figured out how to work all the dashes in it. 4 hours in the shop and 3 hours in my driveway at home that night. But that's another story. So, and in fact, so much so that what I made a statement was, here's what, if I were GM and I were the management of GM, I would take this new vehicle, this Cadillac, this electronic Cadillac, and designed by you, George. You're you're in the electronic division, and you and your team designed this. Good, George. You drive this home, give it to your wife, and say, okay, work these buttons. There's the acid test, where if something's user friendly or not. And it doesn't have to do with male or female. It's have to do with the wives usually are not, they don't care about all that. They want to know how to use it, and they love it, and they love electronics. In fact, last week I just mentioned that there was a study that if a buyer of a new car found a car that was the right color, the right price, and the whole 9 yards, if that car didn't have the electronic safety products that are currently on new cars, 20% of the buyers would not buy that car. They'd insist on having all those electronics. Very interesting. I'm going to take calls now, and then I'm going to share with you the electric vehicle revolution, government, and you'll like some of it, and some of it maybe you'll call and comment at 888 Car Clinic, Louisiana. Let's go to Louisiana and take a call from John. John, good morning. You're first in, so you're first up. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Hey, Mr. Bobby. Yes, sir. I have a 2003 Chevy Silverado. It's a 1500.
Yes, sir.
Standard transmission, 6-cylinder, 4.3.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm having an idle issue. Now, I've done a couple of things I read up on, like some do-it-yourself stuff to try and get it resolved. It hasn't worked. The things that I have done is I cleaned out the throttle body. I had a look at the idle air control valve. I cleaned that.
Right.
Neither of them looked super dirty. I also cleaned out the MAF, and I also replaced the air filter, which didn't seem too bad.
Okay.
Still having idle problems. What it's specifically doing, after the truck gets heated up and good and running, it's pretty much good. But whenever I just get it started, a lot of times if I don't put my foot on the gas when starting it, it'll just die on me. And after I give it the gas for a little bit, then it'll be good, sometimes still with a low idle. But you know what? There was one other thing peculiar about it I noticed. With idling, it typically has a rougher time when I'm in neutral than when I put it into a gear. And I mean, even whenever I have my foot on the clutch pedal, putting it in neutral, but I still have it in first gear, for example, it'll do it a little better. But if I have the actual stick in the neutral position, then it's kind of struggling a little bit. And that's my issue.
Well, here's what I would do, and great description, by the way, John. The first thing that I would do is, now let me understand, after the vehicle is warmed, after you've driven it for 15 minutes, is it okay the rest of the day? Or if you drive it for down the highway and you stop and get gas or go in for a bio break and come out of the station and crank it up, does it idle roughly then, or is it just in the morning sickness?
It's pretty much the morning sickness, because after I've driven for a while and I stop somewhere, like you said, and get back in it, it pretty much starts right up.
Okay, here's what this could well be. The fact that it works okay and idles okay when it's up to operating temperature, is that safe for me to say that? No?
Yeah, I'd say when it's been running for a while, it gets hot, it runs pretty good.
Okay, so here's what I would do. We fixed I don't know many cars this way. When an engine is cold, it has to have more fuel, because like choke. Think of an old carburetor and it had chokes, right? So and because the temperature of the fuel, temperature of the chamber, temperature of the engine is not conducive to not only bad gas mileage, but also it has to have more fuel, and so because it doesn't burn it all, and also the fuel doesn't turn into a gaseous state. For all those reasons, a lot of thermodynamics and yada yada. But here's the point. All of the fuel that goes into the engine when you first crank it up has to go around the intake valve, and the intake valve has carbon polyps on it because it has an O3 model. And so what I would do first with yours is do a commercial cleaning of what's called an induction cleaning service. An induction cleaning service is where we spray a raw chemical, a very commercial, strong chemical, with a spray. Not a squirt can. We say if you were to clean your mouth out and squirt it with a squirt can, you're just cleaning your tongue. But what about the upper roof of your mouth? That's why in the commercial business we use a pressure of like 30 psi pressure and a spray nozzle, and we fog the entire lungs of the engine. When you fog something, that fog not only cleans the floor, because all the liquid puddles in the floor, it also cleans the walls because it's a fog. So it does two things. It cleans the plenum intake of this black lung disease, which your vehicle has, which is carbon and EGR and oil from the PCV system that's coated over the years, and it dissolves the clusters of carbon on the back of the intake valve. And here's the bottom line. Overnight, the valve dries out. You turn the motor off, there's 600 degrees in the chamber, and the intake valve dries out, and the coking, the polyps on the back of the valve are dry. In the morning, when you need the extra fuel, they're a sponge. So the fuel that's delivered by the injector doesn't get into the cylinder like it's supposed to. It is absorbed by the cluster, by the polyp, so that by the time you drive it 2 blocks, the polyp has been saturated, and now it's okay. But so has the temperature risen. So perform a commercial induction system service on your vehicle before you do anything else. And with that, I'll be back after the break. In the service bay this week, a longtime customer's 2000 Ford Taurus. He'd been complaining about a humming noise at highway speeds and grinding when he stopped. With 55,000 miles on the odometer, the driver's had the vehicle since new and never had any work done. No brakes, no suspension. A thorough inspection revealed a number of potential problems: a failing left front wheel bearing, worn-out rear brake pads and rotors, and the beginnings of a leaking brake caliper. Our choice to solve these problems? Motorcraft. Brake systems and suspension repair represent serious work you want done right the first time. Choosing quality parts is critical to ensuring vehicle reliability and longevity. Motorcraft quality brake and suspension parts are engineered for Ford and Lincoln vehicles. From the hub to the rotor, calipers, brake pads, and wheel bearings, Motorcraft quality parts provide you with the stopping power and stability needed for your vehicle. Learn more about Motorcraft brake and suspension parts at motorcraft.com. That's motorcraft.com. Motorcraft, right part, priced right. We recently performed a major service on a 1996 F-150. The vehicle had just under 200,000 miles on it. In addition to fluids and filters, we changed the spark plugs and boots, performed a cooling system flush, and replaced the thermostat, hoses, and drive belts. After a few weeks, the owner noticed a small leak coming from the area where the transmission bolted onto the block. Using a pressure tester, we found that coolant was seeping from one of the freeze plugs at the rear of the engine. This repair would require several hours of labor and another few days or so in the shop. Given the truck's age and the fact it was just in the shop for service, we suggested K-Seal, a one-step permanent multi-purpose system for coolant leak repair that won't clog radiators or heater cores. K-Seal stops leaks and can also prevent future leaks. After driving the truck for a week, the owner called and let us know the leak had stopped. K-Seal is available at fine retailers everywhere, like Napa Auto Parts. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone tip.
From Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find recycling tips, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Don't let your old tech tools clog your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And thank you for tuning in to Bobby Likis Car Clinic today. What a great program. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by Motorcraft. Insist on Motorcraft parts for quality and durability. Motorcraft, right part, priced right. And folks, you can learn more at motorcraft.com. We'll go to Texas, take a call from Robert. Robert, good morning. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
How you doing, Bobby?
Terrific. You?
Oh, not too bad. Let me I'll get right to the point. I got a 2006 Dodge 1500 with a 4.7, and I had some trouble with the original motor in it, so I went to a place that does strictly motors, and I bought $6,800, a crated motor, brand new.
Oh, wow.
And they put it in, and I'm sorry.
I love crate motors. You know, like you said, because everything's new. You know, I mean, either a reman engine, which means that, and folks, there's a difference between rebuild, reman, and crate new. And the bottom of the food chain is overhaul or overhaul or rebuild. Because rebuild an engine means you replace the parts that are broken. Well, how deeply do you go? I mean, do you put cam and lifters and push rods and rockers? And I mean, a lot of those parts are usable. Again, they're not worn out. So when an engine is rebuilt or overhauled, per se, and this is also true, Robert, for transmissions. Years ago, the state of California says we have a problem here between what is reman, what is overhauled, what is rebuilt, or what is new. So they wrote a description And so if you're in the automotive service business, you have to abide by that description. And so in your case, you mentioned a crate motor. Well, to me, folks, and for you, a crate motor means it's all new, a brand new motor. It's never been in any car, and it's manufactured by the manufacturer, and it's put inside a crate. And if I were to buy, that's what we buy. We use reman engines and crate engines as well. But back to you, Robert. Let's talk about what your challenges are.
Okay, well, I don't seem to have any trouble with the motor itself, but about a month after, 2 months after I got, back in the car, in the truck, I noticed that it seemed like my fuel mileage went way down, and when I would come up to a stoplight and stop and wait for it to turn green, when I went to go, it would hesitate, and then it would go.
Right.
Then when I'd get to a gas station, I'd shut the engine off, and I'd go into the gas station and come back out. When I started it up, it starts up fine, and then when I'm backing out, it's backing out fine. But when I go, it will hesitate and then sometimes die. And then as soon as I start it back up again, it's fine and it runs. Well, and I thought maybe it was an airflow problem, so I changed the air cleaner in it, and that didn't seem to change anything. And I wasn't sure. It could be a number of things, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, sure. So let's just say this. What are the supporting, and this is the theoretical question, what supports the engine's performance on the outside? Because you've got an all-new piece here. Well, fuel pump and fuel pressure, air mass sensor.
The fuel pump was replaced about a year and a half ago.
Okay. Fuel pump, fuel pressure, air mass sensor, of course, engine temp and those sorts of things. PCV system, idle air controller. So all of the typical things that control the engine idle speed and the fuel delivery. So I would concentrate on those factors: engine idle speed, which means the air intake. In other words, I breathe. If you and I are jogging, I breathe through my nose. But at one point in time, depending on how fast you take me, I got to open my mouth because I'm not getting enough air in my lungs. So your engine has an idle air passage that will allow it to walk. It won't jog because not enough air goes in the jog. It'll idle at 750 RPM or maybe up to 1,000 and sometimes up to 1,250 when you first fire the engine. That's called an idle air control, and it bypasses the throttle and opens another airway like a tracheotomy. Okay, you with me so far? So now we've got a little small passageway that allows the engine to idle fast even though you're not touching the accelerator, and the throttle is not open. There's just another passageway for air to come in that speeds the engine up, and the engine adds fuel to it. So that's that the throttle body is involved in that. The idle air controller is involved in that. PCV system, that false air. Those are the kind of things that need to be inspected by a shop, and a fuel pressure test. Even forget the fact that you've got a 1.5 year pump. So what? I put a pump in a Ford recently that wasn't a Ford part. I won't do that again. I put a pump in a Ford, and the customer still had the same problem. It wouldn't come to life. And it would always start. But she was a single parent, and she came to me and she said, "Bobby, I brought this car to you because I'm afraid it wouldn't start and run, and I don't have the option of not going. I got to take my daughter to school, then I got to go to work." And so ultimately, we ended up pulling that fuel pump out because it had the same symptom, and we put a pump in, so we knew it wasn't the pump. Wrong, it was the pump. So we put a Motorcraft pump, Ford pump, in that Ford and fixed the problem. Having said that, and the reason I mentioned that, Robert, because just because you got a pump that's 1.5 years old, so what? You've got to test it. And you don't have to throw the baby out in the bathwater here. A shop can test this, and here's what they want to test. You got a pencil?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. A fuel pressure test includes operating pressure. So put down operating pressure. Dead head pressure. They'll know what that means. Volume and residual pressure. And residual pressure means when you turn your vehicle off to go in for the buy oil break at a service station, all the time you've left that truck out there, there's still pressure in the fuel line.
Right.
Just like a hose. If you're washing your car and you got a nozzle and you're finished washing the car, which I did mine last night, you turn the faucet off at the house, but you couldn't hold the nozzle towards your face because there's still a lot of pressure in the hose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until it leaks down or you let pressure off.
Exactly. So the car and all cars have residual pressure. And it's not the same as operating pressure because there's some leakage when you turn the car off. So that residual pressure should be there for at least 10 to 15 minutes, and it should be at least 40% of the operating pressure or 30% of the operating pressure, enough that there's no air in there, because if there's air in the fuel line, when you fire the car up, it's going to miss wherever there's air, or it's going to go dead. So those are the two things that I can share with you that I would have tested. Fuel pressure test with the same steps that I talked about, and then of course check for the PCV system and check for false air and check the throttle body and those sorts of things, and you're going to find your problem somewhere in there. So anyway, I'm glad you called, and let me know when you get to the other side, and let me know if you need more information. Give me a call next week after you talk to a local shop, but have this conversation with a shop owner and tell them specifically not how to fix it, but these are tests that you'd like them to perform for you to get from point A to where you are to fix. You got it?
All right, that helps me a lot. I appreciate your help.
You're welcome. Thank you, Robert. Now we'll go from Texas to North Carolina. Bill, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic in North Carolina. Glad to have you join us.
Good morning, Bobby.
Morning, sir.
I'm going to go take you back a few years into your race car days.
Okay.
I've got an 06 Silverado 3/4 ton that has some rust issues, and I was wondering if you could remember or would know anything about when is too much time to park it. Basically, there's considerable amount of rust from the stuff they spray on the roads here in the mountains to keep the snow off of them.
Oh, wow.
And I'm getting ready to put cab mounts under it, have some welding done on that. And I just got curious as to when should I start worrying about the frame, because I've seen one that looked like it had a hinge in the middle of it.
Yeah. I hear you. So you're asking me, when's it time to fold them or hold them with your 06 Chevrolet, right?
Yeah. Is there any way of testing how much strength there is in the frame? It's got a full frame.
Well, yes. Not that no. Aftermarket-wise, no. There's no firm that puts a frame in a test. That's all done when they make the frame at the factory. Having said that, anyone with an eagle eye, in fact, you yourself, even if you're not trained or in metallurgy, you put that vehicle on a rack and you look at, here's what you want to look at. You want to look at the main structure points that the suspension is bolted to, meaning the shackles for the rear, or if it's got coil springs, the pockets, the crossover from the back of the frame where the above the axle housing, right above the axle housing where the shock absorbers are bolted, the front suspension where the A-arms are attached to the frame. You want to look at all those things and just see how badly they're rusted. You'd really have to have a Chevrolet truck, if it's one thing, and I'm not a Chevrolet guy, but a Chevrolet truck, or any truck for that matter, it's one thing the trucks talk about that they have, and that's a hell of a frame. So you'd have to have a really bad vehicle to be frameless or to be dangerous, and I think that's where you're going. So I would, if I were you, go to a service shop and rack that vehicle and look just using your eyes and take a big screwdriver and just start poking around on the rust, and if it's surface rust, who cares? Only if you have holes, or only if you have, where they rivet the factory. A lot of times they don't use bolts; they use big rivets, like when they, let's say the Golden Gate Bridge, I'm sure has a lot of rivets in it. So your chassis, your Chevrolet frame has a lot of rivets. So you look where the rivets are attached, And if you've got movement there going down the road, you see that the vehicle is already doing for you what you'd like to have done. What is that? It's already testing the structure, because every time you hit a bump, everything that goes over that bump puts pressure on the frame, and the frame mounts and the suspension mounts. So concentrate on the suspension mounts. You're already looking at the body mounts. That's not a factor. That's fixable. But concentrate on the frame mounts for the suspension, front and rear, and you'll have your answer. You got it?
Okay. Could I run you one real quick one by?
You got 10 seconds.
It has a 6-liter Vortec in it, and I've been told that there's no fuel filter for that system.
It's in the trunk. It's in the tank.
In the tank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't worry. Whenever the pump goes out, put a complete bucket, a module that has the pump, the wires, the gauge, and the filter all at one time. Otherwise, no worries.
Awesome. Okay. Appreciate you
Thank
here.
You, Bill.
Give somebody else a chance. You take care.
Okay, Bill. Thanks for calling. Perfect timing. When I come back, we're going to go to John in South Carolina. Got Florida calls, got Texas calls, and New York. Don't touch that dial. I'm Bobby Likis. You'll love us. Folks, recently a 99 Chevrolet Blazer came into the shop. The owner was having problems with hesitation upon acceleration. He'd already changed out several parts: spark plugs, wires, ignition coil, mass airflow sensor, fuel filter, and the air filter element. He even changed the thermostat and coolant temperature sensor. Still had the same problem after putting a lot of money in this car, and he was frustrated. We dug a little deeper, cleaned the throttle body, and checked for trouble codes. No codes. So we recommended Berryman B12 Chem Tool. Carbon deposits and dirty fuel injector nozzles are a common problem with drivability in late model engines. We also recommended a higher quality gasoline. The customer noticed improvement on the first day, and only a few days and a few hundred miles later, the problem was completely gone. Berryman B12 Chem Tool features HEST, Berryman's exclusive high-energy solvent technology. The result is a more complete combination of available chemical technologies. Drive to BerrymanProducts.com for more information. That's BerrymanProducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease. She showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Be careful what you ask for. I ask for calls, ask you to call in, and we have a bank of calls. So I will be answering as many questions as I can get to. The caller, 2 calls ago, talked about an 8-speed transmission, and I talked about mapping. So that's where a computer reads the input from the driver demands, and changes the gear according to the driver's demands and the topography, the incline of the hill, and the engine load and engine speed. Well, let's shift gears, no pun intended, to an integrated housing thermostat. And this is a product that's made by Motorrad. And I want you to know, just from a technical standpoint, what we're doing with new cars. Well, I say we, what the industry is doing, and specifically what Motorrad is doing. It's an integrated map control housing thermostat. What is that? There's a computer program that is controlling the thermostat that controls the engine temperature. And you say, well, once the engine reaches temperature, it's there. No, folks. The engine temperature of an engine depends on the speed of the vehicle, the load on the engine, and the temperature of the coolant. So if you had, in a perfect world, you want to have no flow of coolant and when you crank an engine in the morning because you want the engine to warm up. Then as the engine warms, you want to give it a little flow, but not a lot, just enough to maintain that temperature. And that's why the Motorrad, the integrated housing thermostat, works so well, because there's a computer, it's so cool, that controls all of these variables. And if you control the variables, here's what happened. The results are lower emissions and fuel consumption. That's a good thing. And greater engine output. That's a great thing. So for more information, check them out at motorrad.com. They also manufacture sensors, and specifically the sensor that I really like is a variable valve timing sensor that is the device that changes the cam timing on the fly depending on RPM and load of the engine, all made by Motorrad. Motorrad.com. Let's go to South Carolina now. John, thanks for holding. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Yeah, Bobby, I have a 2006 Mustang GT. It's got young miles. It only has 6,000 miles on it.
Wow.
But I'm having problems getting gas into the tank. It splashes out.
Right.
It won't take it. And I guess that's been a problem with those Mustangs. I'm just trying to find a solution because I can't put up with that. You stand there at the gas tank.
Okay. All right. Number one, it is not a problem with those Mustangs. It's a problem with your Mustang. No, I mean, and just so you'll have your mind squared away, no new car that's manufactured is manufactured so that you can't put the gas nozzle in and click it and run it fast, wide open. I mean, it's unsafe, and it doesn't. It happens, but it happens because there's a problem. So you have a problem with your Mustang. I suspect that. Understand this: you've got one big pipe where you put the nozzle in, and that's a gas filler neck. You with me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, guess what? The faster you put in fuel, the faster the air is displaced that's in the tank. Where does that air go? You ever thought about that?
Well, my mechanic's already disconnected the air one that goes into the charcoal filter underneath the tank.
Right.
He disconnected that, and he said drive it for a couple of days.
What?
If we can determine whether that's a filter or not.
Wow.
And it still splashes out. So
well, that's because he's number one. You never disconnect any. I don't know how he did that because that's exposing fumes to atmosphere, and you. I don't understand that. I really don't. The check engine light come on.
Yeah, he said that if the engine light comes on, disregard it.
Did it?
Oh yeah, it did.
Okay, all right.
And then the cap light came on too.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so here's the point. Here's the point. There's a let's make it real simple. You got a tank with a pipe going up, and you pour fuel in that pipe, which comes down that pipe. The tank, the top of the tank, has a hose that lets the air out, and the air goes right back up on the top side of that filler neck. You can't see it because it's where the plunger goes in, the end of the nozzle, and it allows air to go out of the car as you're putting fluid in, gas in, and whenever it gets to the point that that it's full, then the gas runs back up to the end of the nozzle, and it'll click off automatically, unless you get a bad nozzle at the service station. I've had that happen one time in my life. Anyway, so for every fuel tank that has an inlet going of gas in it, it has an outlet for the air to escape during fill up, and to that end, that's another reason that you see the gas nozzle that has the apron, the rubber apron on the nozzle, so the fumes don't, come out to atmosphere. I don't think it does any good, but it's something the gas stations, EPA made the gas stations add that. I guess it's better to have it being raw fuel being blocked. But here's the point. Someone needs to remove the fuel filler neck pipe that goes into the fuel tank and the hose that is attached to it, and make sure that that's an open airway, because there's got to be a kink or a dirt daubler's nest, or there's got to be some blockage there, because the car wasn't made from the factory to have problems like that. So maybe you should go to another technician.
Okay, so you're talking about the hose that deals with where you put the gas in that goes into the tank.
Yeah, but there's a sister hose. There's a smaller. That's a pipe that's 2 inches around. There's a 1 inch air bleed that goes right back up to the top of that neck. Look, go to your technician and ask him to look for a diagram, a picture of the fuel filler neck, or go to a local Ford dealership and say, "Do you have a fuel filler neck?" And they probably do. I mean, body shops, in a wreck, those are common items that get damaged with side impacts. So it's a common item that you can buy. It's not like some widget that rarely ever goes bad. So you can see, or better yet, look at a diagram of the evaporative emission system so that you can see the air bleed, because when the engine is turned off and the electronics are shut down, it's when you fill the fuel, there has to be an open air vent to let air out of the tank. You got it?
I got it, but Ford don't even want to recognize this. I've tried the dealers, and they don't even want to look at it. They said, "Well, it could be many things. It could be the tank itself." I said, "Well, I know I have the new tank on, because they give me a new. They put a new tank in 2006 because 2005 had that problem. So they put a new tank in 2006. That was supposed to correct it. Well, it didn't, because they get a lot of complaints on the internet with people complaining it's hard to put gas in a 2005 and 6 Mustang. And they tell you, go to a different gas station. Well, that's not the answer. Then they tell you, turn the nozzle upside down.
Well, really?
For some reason, turning that nozzle upside down does take the gas better. Why? I don't know.
Well, neither do I. And all I can say is what I've already said. You got to get another opinion. You're not talking to the right people, because I can tell you something. If I owned that car, it wouldn't have that problem. And my standard is the same for my customers as it is for me. You got to find some more help locally there in South Carolina.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good luck. So, folks, if you buy a new car and you go out to the dealership and somebody tells you, "Oh, they all do that," well, good. Go out there in the parking lot and find another car just like yours. Doesn't have to be the same color, and go drive it and see if it does the same thing. That's really easy to do. Let's go to John. Thank you for holding, John. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Yes, how are you doing? Great program.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm trying to help. Here's the bottom line with car repair. It's easy sometimes and it's hard sometimes. But the fact is, you as an owner, you, John, Richards, Ho, and another John from Texas, you shouldn't have to put up with something that the car didn't come with from the factory. If you buy a purple and yellow car, it's yours. But it doesn't mean it's going to get bad gas mileage because it's purple and yellow. It just amazes me how people in my industry make up excuses. It's like a dealership telling you, "Oh, don't change the transmission fluid." Well, what if it's for your car, Bobby? "Oh, well, I changed the fluid, but I can't say that because I work for the manufacturer and the OEM franchise." You got it? Anyway, enough of that. Well, how can I help you?
Well, Bobby, I've got a lot of cars. I got 56 Chevy, 68 Firebird, 75 Stage 1 Buick,
Wow.
an old one.
Wow.
And got a Sunbird with a 388 in, an old 80 Sunbird. But I can fix those.
Right.
No problem. Simple cars. But I got a RAV4 2000 that drives me crazy. It's got an intermittent miss, it says, on cylinder 1, and it has no power until it gets really rolling.
Have you run a compression test on the engine?
No. It's got a little over 100,000 miles on it, so it doesn't have a lot of miles.
That's okay. The first thing you want to do, you can never put on the outside what is not on the inside. So the first thing you need to do is go back to basics versus going through a litany of spark plug and fuel injector and valve timing and all those things that could be that are elusive, evasive, and sometimes difficult to find, like a needle in a haystack. So you're asking, where's the needle in your haystack? Well, I would say to you, how big is the needle? Well, we know it's not very big. How large is the haystack? Well, that's a big deal. It could be a football size, or it could be the size of a haystack in a truck. So here's the bottom line. The first thing that I'm going to suggest to you is to run a compression test on the engine, because that will give you, this vehicle is 20 years old, John. So it will, even though it's got 100,000 miles on it, that will give you the information that you need to know. And if you got a pen, write this down. And I'm hurrying because I want to get other calls.
Okay.
All right. You want a compression test with all spark plugs removed. You want to make sure. You want to make sure that when the engine is turned over, no more than 6 times.
6 times. I heard that before from
you. Because you could stick a compression gauge in a bad cylinder, and if you go 100 times, you're going to eventually get the number you want. Well, guess what?
Right.
The engine doesn't have the time. It only turns over one time and contracts the air. So you 6 times, and here's what it should be: 75, depending on where the piston is located. The first one doesn't count because it could be halfway up. So the second of the 6 pumps would get 75 to 80 pounds, and then 90 pounds, and then 125, and then the last 2 would be 135 to 155. Now you could jump 190, it doesn't matter, but you get a relative 6 pump reading, and then you compare that to the other 3. And if you got one that, oh, wait, this didn't do right, well, just let it go on to the next one, the next one, the next one, come back to that one. Because they all have to act the same. They're not like children. They are fixed machines, and each of those cylinders has to act the same and has to have the same pressure within 10%, has to have the same capturing of pressure within the same time frame, and that's 6 spins. That's your first thing for you to do, and then you call me next week after that.
Yeah, I'll do that. I was thinking the coil might be bad, one of those coilover plugs.
Well, it could be, but a check engine light would come on, and you could read the scan and read the code. I'm assuming that you already done all that.
Yeah, I read it said just intermittent misfire on cylinder 1.
It's okay. Then take cylinder coil 1 and put it where 2 is, and then go drive it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. You got it. Call me.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Or have your people call my people. Okay.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, see you. Let's go to John in Texas. John, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thank you for holding. We're short time left. What can I do for you?
All right, make it quick. I had a buddy of mine, 2010 Malibu. He carried it. They said the fuel pump. I put a fuel pump in it for him. All right, 2 weeks, it quit again. Fuel pump again. Replaced the fuel pump. Cranked right back up. Run fine. Week and a half. Quit again. What can be knocking it out? There's no trash in the tank, or there's something else that's just being just pure fluff.
Yeah. I'll tell you what's doing. What do you do when you put the pump in? You have to unplug the old pump. So you unplug the pump. You put the plug aside. You put a new pump in. Take the plug, plug it back on. Here's what I'm going to say to you. Here's what I would do. I would take this same vehicle that has a bad pump that you think, because you're not having 2 bad pumps, and I would unplug it and plug it back in and make it think you put a new pump in. It's not the pump, it's the plug.
Good. Okay, that'll work. She'll give it a shot. If
okay, my
work,
friend.
I'll call you back next week.
Okay, do that. Thank you. Well, Richard is on the phone, wants to know what car to buy. And Richard, I don't have the time to take your call, so I'm going to ask you to return the call next week. Remember, from 10 till noon Eastern Time, Bobby Likis Car Clinic comes to you, I'll have an opportunity to help you. He's asking what car to buy, and that's a story that I don't want to hurry, because that can be a long, drawn out. So, Richard, I'm going to ask you to call back next week, and I'm going to ask you to narrow it down, your choice, to 3 different vehicles, and then we'll talk about those, and we'll go from there. Folks, I appreciate you calling today. I want to share this with you. One of the biggest assets that our partner sponsor, O'Reilly Auto Parts, can provide for you at no cost is repair shop referral. If you're looking for a repair shop in your area, you go to a local O'Reilly Auto Parts store and you see the counterparts person and ask, who's the best shop around here? And you'll get your answer. Otherwise, you tune in next week to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Repairing a coolant leak can be costly and typically happens to older vehicles that may not be worth the expensive fix. K-Seal is an alternative, a pour-in solution designed to stop leaks and help prevent future leaks. Older sealers use sodium silicate, which has a tendency to clog the system. K-Seal features ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. K-Seal is available nationwide at parts stores like O'Reilly Auto Parts. Learn more at kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
O'Reilly. Protect your engine with 5 parts of Castrol Edge full synthetic motor oil and a Wix filter for just $33.99. Plus, get a $15 gift card after mail-in rebate. You can also earn bonus O Rewards points on Castrol Edge motor oil products right now at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limit supply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
P. Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grown, now you're here to roll